Have you written a dietary supplement formula only for the manufacturers you've reached out to quote you well over budget? If there's an affordability issue there and it's stopping you from pulling the trigger and going ahead and building that dream supplement business, then don't panic. In this video, I'm going to cover 4 strategies that will help lower the price of that formula without compromising the quality and results it can hopefully deliver. And if all else fails, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you 2 things you can do to keep the dream alive, even if that formula you originally wrote is just not going to happen. All right, welcome. I'm Mark, and thank you to Victor for this question. He left a question in the comments, and any question you leave in the comments, I will make a video on. Victor and a client I was dealing with last week as well have both got their dream formulas put together. They've sent them off, and it's come over budget. My client and Victor have said, what can we do? So let's get into the 4 things we can do. Now, what we don't want to do before I give you the 4 is start haggling and trying to beat your manufacturing partner up on price. The reason I haggle a lot, I'm a trained salesman, 16 years of experience, face-to-face sales. I love haggling. It makes me feel good. But we have a problem with the supplement business, and that is there's a lot of good faith involved. And what you don't want to do is go and kick your manufacturing partner in the balls on price. It's $12 a bottle. I want 9. It's $12. I want 9. Look, we'll meet you at $11.50, $9.50. If you keep that attitude up, what you run the risk of is those people just agreeing to do the deal, and then walking out the back into the warehouse and saying, you know what, this person was horrible. And they don't want to pay any money. They got no budget. So why don't we use that old bag of nearly expired ingredients there? And you know they wanted the alpha GPC choline. Well, they're not getting that. Give them that old choline tartrate with the lower bioavailability, you know, half the price, and you won't know. And you'll go out there, false advertising and all the rest of it. And trust me, there are a lot of unscrupulous manufacturers who wouldn't think twice to do that if you upset them. So we don't want to negotiate on price. If you were to ever negotiate on price, I have negotiated on price, but it's always been a win-win. And I've always gone with a big smile on my face. So I've said, for example, you're at $10 a bottle. I would really love to see this at $9 a bottle, but what I'll do is I'll order another 200. If I was to go 1,200 minimum order quantity instead of 1,000, you could meet me at that $9 a bottle, couldn't you? And you will often find people, if you come with that attitude, are more receptive. But let's just say the quote's well over, and really we've got to go back to the drawing board with the formula. Let's have a look at what we can do. All right, so if your formulas come over budget, the first thing we can do is cut that formula down by reducing the number of capsules. This is it's a simple thing, but you'll be surprised how many people will write a formula that comes to 6 to 8 capsules. Now, in a standard 00 capsule, the capsule you'll get with the average supplement, you've got about 600 milligrams of room in there, subject to ingredient density. So with my client last week, when we looked at how many milligrams he put in his dream formula, it was actually coming in at like 8 capsules. And I said to the client, we could get a brilliant result with just 4 capsules. I can see some things that we can cut down. You've gone over on your milligrams. And by reducing your formula size, you can still keep the exact same amount of ingredients you want. So the first thing to do would be check your formula, see how many capsules it's coming in at, and then take it down. Halving it will get most people into the budget. Number 2 would be to check out each ingredient has evidence for results at the milligrams. Now, with my client last week, what I found was that they had put in 1,000 milligrams of an ingredient that had very strong evidence for the result, the benefit the client was hoping to get at just 200 milligrams. So we've got strong evidence at 200 milligrams that we will get the result at 200 milligrams. We could have put 3, maybe 400 in, but the client hasn't really done the research on the evidence, the clinical studies, and they've come in at 1,000 milligrams unnecessarily. So check each ingredient to make sure that you haven't overcompensated and put too much in unnecessarily. Okay, the third thing we can do is ask the lab to identify the three most expensive ingredients. Now, this is really going to help because sometimes you might have put an ingredient in just at the last minute as an afterthought. I'll stick some KSM 66 ashwagandha in, for example. And that could have been the ingredient that's bumped the price up by some 30%. And you didn't even care to have it in the formula in the first place. So what I would do is go to the manufacturer and say, hey, this has come a little bit over budget for me. Could you help me identify the three most expensive ingredients, please? And I'll consider either removing them or finding a cheaper alternative. And if you could, whilst you're identifying and replying to my email with those three ingredients, it would be really helpful if you could maybe send an alternative that your formula writer or chemist thinks would be a cheaper alternative, but would likely get me the same result. So that would be a good thing to do. And the fourth thing you could do would be remove branded ingredients because I see a lot of people putting these branded ingredients in. And I know these people don't know formulas too well. They don't know ingredients too well. And I always ask them, why have you gone with the branded version? And everyone says the same thing. It looks better on the supplement facts label. And to a degree, I agree. It does look better. But if there's a difference between you being able to pull the trigger on the business and make this happen versus you not, then we really don't need to see a branded version of choline when most people who are looking for choline wouldn't even know that there's a branded version. They may be looking for alpha GPC choline or CBP choline, etc. And when we see maybe cognizin or one of these branded cholines, they may not know what that means because it's rarely talked about on the forums and on the internet. So you might think it looks better on the supplement facts, but sometimes it can confuse people, especially if you're dealing with a market like the nootropics market, the focus formula market, or the bodybuilding world, where those people do know what they're looking at in terms of a formula. So there's four things you can do. Cut the formula down, just drop a few capsules, tally up what you've got. Remember, you've got on average about 550 to 600 milligrams. So if you're coming in at 8 capsules per serving, your formula is probably overkill. And killing 2 capsules of the 6 to take it down to 4 might bring you in a budget and still get people a better result because perhaps we've not overstimulated them, causing a crash later, or perhaps we've not gone overkill on too many ingredients, doing too many different things, like running a PC with 3 different antivirus programs. And there have been studies to show that sometimes less is more in a formula. Check each ingredient has evidence for the results at your milligrams. Okay, sometimes we can go overkill unnecessarily. We don't need 2 grams of ginkgo biloba if there's evidence that it's going to do the job at 300. Ask the lab to, and you can use ChatGPT to guide you here. You can also look at what other manufacturers are putting in their products as well. And you can, of course, go to great websites like examine.com and healthline.com, which will tell you the results and evidence for, and if there is evidence, they will link to studies which will tell you the milligrams that the participants on the study were given daily. Ask the lab to identify the 3 most important ingredients, the 3 most expensive ingredients. You might find just taking one of those ingredients out or swapping it for an alternative might bring it into budget. And finally, we said remove the branded ingredients. They really don't do too much. Not too many people are paying too much attention to the supplement facts because the average person couldn't tell you the difference between a carbohydrate and a protein. And so that branded, and usually when these ingredients are branded, there's not a branded ingredient. There may be, which would mean in this world that if a company is making an ingredient, it means that the reason they've got that branded name and that patent is because they've learned to lab synthesize, to recreate a natural ingredient, vitamin or mineral, and they've managed to do it in a laboratory. But 9 times out of 10, it usually relates to the extraction process. If we look at piperin, black pepper extract, you'll find that Sabinsa Corp own the patent and the brand name Bioperin. And I've always used bioperine because the difference in price between piperine or black pepper extract and bioperine is so small. And I too like that registered trademark on the back of my supplement facts. But beyond bioperine, it wouldn't be a deal breaker for me. I'm not really interested in seeing branded ingredients. What I'm looking for is a really good story on the website that sells me into why I need these ingredients, why this formula is something I need in my life, and what it's going to do for me. All right. Now, what happens if all else fails and we're just stuck? It's I've got $6 and it's coming in at 9 at best and deals off. Well, excuse me. The first thing we could do is make a light version or a diet version. Now, I actually launched my first supplement with a focus enhancer at $59 with all the ingredients I wanted in there. But I also knew that $59 was a bit of a leap for, say, people on a budget. And I did want to leverage students, and I knew the average student might find $59 a month a little bit of a stretch with all the fees they got to pay, books they got to buy, etc. So what I did was I created a foot in the door product, which I priced at 19. This was just 2 ingredients, caffeine and L-theanine, what we know in the industry as smart caffeine. And so bearing in mind, I've got this energizing focus formula at $59. I brought the caffeine and L-theanine product in as a booster, something if you wanted your main product a little bit spicier, a little bit amped up, you could include the caffeine booster, because I wasn't 100% sure on whether people would want caffeine in my formula. So I brought it in as a separate product. That did me really well. A lot of people like to buy the second product with the first one and get that, the two together. But more importantly, the product, the light version, the amplifier, the $19 caffeine booster, that would have still worked as a mini focus formula. So it was almost like a diet version of my main formula. And a lot of people got their foot in the door because they could afford it. And eventually they might go up once they believed and they got the results. Well, now I want to try the $59 one. But that's coming off topic, because what we're dealing with here is not being able to afford the $59. But the story I just told you basically says, look, you could start with a light version of your formula. It doesn't even need to be of your formula. All that needs to happen is that you need to be able to plug your dream formula in 6 to 12 months, when it is affordable, into the client base you have built with the light formula. So if you've got a fat loss formula, and you believe in it, and it's going to change the world, but you can't afford it right now, get it put up on the wall and keep looking at it every day and say, I'm going to have you in 6 months. But start off with maybe just a caffeine appetite suppressant supplement. That would probably cost you $5 rather than the 10 to 12 you can't afford right now for the dream formula, the ultimate fat burner. But it would still mean for the next 3 to 6 months, we can make an income, but more importantly, start building a client base of people who are interested in losing weight. So when we do have the money to pull the trigger on the dream formula and we introduce it to them, it's not going to be foreign. I got no need for this. It's actually going to be, wow, you've got a better version of what I've already been taking and love. So consider creating a light version. The second thing you can do if all else fails is do exactly what I've just said there. Focus not on launching the dream formula right now, but rather building a base of people that would be very receptive to that dream formula when you either have the confidence or the budget or the know-how to go ahead with it. And we can build that base with, as I just mentioned, a light version, which we could custom. But if those minimum order quantities are still coming in too high, we could just build that base with a private label supplement. And again, as long as if your dream formula up on the wall, your custom formula that right now isn't affordable, if that's a fat burner, then we should start building that base of customers and that community and that brand around a fat burning niche. So go to a private label company and just say, hey, do you have a solid fat burner? And there's plenty out there that will get you a fat burning supplement for around $5 a bottle with a minimum order quantity of 150 bottles. That's if you're in the US. The UK, other parts of Europe tend to be a little bit higher. In the UK, I've seen minimum order quantities on private labels 300 bottles, but it's still going to be a lot cheaper than the standard which is 1,000 bottles minimum order quantity if you're trying to build a custom formula unique to you. If you do a session with me, by the way, and you can go to www.yoursupplementbusiness.com. If you book a Zoom session with me, then I will introduce you to a friend of mine who will get you a custom formula off the ground at just 500 bottles minimum order quantity in the US. They are a GMP approved manufacturer, and I can make that happen for you. But again, if 500 bottles is still too much, don't give up on the dream. Just get the formula up on the wall and work towards it. And start not by giving up, but starting small with some private label or a light version if you can't come to an agreement with the manufacturer on your budget. That's it. Victor, thanks for the question. I hope that's helped. And I did yesterday build a video. It was a big 2-hour-long video, and I went through the whole A to Z. But I minimized myself, brought up a screenshot and forgot it was there, and talked to camera for about 25 minutes. And I'm about an inch on the screen. And if you're watching me on the phone, about a centimeter, just moving in the corner. So I'm going to redo that video in 2 days' time. And so by the weekend, where are we now? 3rd week of Jan, we should have a great video on the whole A to Z. A couple of hours on how to pick a niche, pick a product, find a manufacturing partner, how to ship the product, best e-com practices, and how to lay your website out. And we might get a chance to touch on some of the marketing. So stay tuned for that. Like this video if it's been a help. Subscribe if you don't want to miss more. And that's it. I'm out. Thanks for the questions, and leave a comment. Any question, I'll make a video. All the best. Cheers.